So feel free to make any questions you would like to ask on the chat. We will keep track of those, and then as soon as we have one moment, we'll try to answer all your doubts. You can also, as usual, and as you are doing all the time, can suggest links to other resources, share your personal experiences, and as usual, try to be as open as possible. So yeah, freedom is the key word here. All right, I'll start then sharing my presentation. Hope you can see it. And this is what we are gonna talk about today. Just trying if it works. It looks a bit small in Tomislava's screen, but should work fine anyway. So we decided today to focus on creativity. So we were talking about creativity the previous time and during the previous webinar as well, because it's a key topic. It's key for our everyday life. It's key for our kids, for our students. It's key for ourselves. It motivates us and it makes us go forward and create new stuff, create new solutions. And we decided just to give an introduction on how you could move your first steps in, let's say, doing some creative activities with technology, with digital creation into your classroom. Tonight is going to be myself and Tomislava presenting to you some of the tools that we have tried for you, actually. And we are also happy to discuss any of these elements with you furthermore. So we're not going to discuss what digital creativity is. We don't want to give a definition of it or try to really understand the theoretical framework of it. We all believe this is crucial in our lives. The point is now, how can I really make use of these elements that are available in a productive way into my classroom? So we know that we are constantly in touch with digital natives, being our nephews, our kids, our pupils, or our students. So the questions that we have been asking ourselves all the time is, okay, we know that they were born in a digital age. We know that they use a lot digital devices. They are in contact with the digital world. But then, are we really sure that they are competent users? Are we really sure that they can make something with technology? Are they just consumers, or can be they considered competent users? Can be they considered creative inventors with technology? And this is exactly what we would like to start sparking in their mind. We've been running a learning event on how to spark this creativity through coding, which is basically an element of a broader subset, which is called programming. And these are basically the elements that allow you to program or to command a machine in a way that allows the machine to perform a certain action. We've been using it, coding, as a way of teaching also other subjects. So, and a way to connect with students with technology and to connect students with teachers as well. This tag cloud that you see here, it's actually the result of the discussion we had with those teachers, and some of you were in that learning event as well. What strikes me is that the main word that you can see there is actually teach, because coding was actually seen by teachers as a good way to teach, to engage students into their subject. They were not teaching ICT, as many of you aren't, but they were using some elements of coding and programming to make their lessons more effective. Also, what was interesting was the fact that the students were so prominent in this cloud, because the students, when you start some project-based learning, which might involve some programming, gets to be in the center of the attention, so starts to be in the driving seat of the learning process. And that's, of course, as you know, very important for their engagement, very important for also keep them in school. As we know, many of them tend to leave school earlier than they probably should. The beginning As you probably very well know, and as we know, doing also this job, we have many doubts when we start to integrate technology or coding in the classroom. We've never done it before. Our schools are not equipped. They don't have the latest technology or even enough infrastructures or internet connection. We don't feel we are competent enough to teach those elements. We feel that our students are have more experience on ICT than we do. And and maybe, as I was mentioning before, we're not ICT teachers or IT teachers, and we teach other subjects. So is it really our role to introduce technology to make our students more confident users and responsible users of technology? This is a quote that we took from teachers that took part from a previous learning event, who said that coding is a journey and it's awesome. In fact, as we intend coding really is a kind of path, a journey towards a purpose. And the purpose is something that we set. So we do use technology, as we were saying on the previous webinar. We do try to keep at pace with innovation, but we always use that with a purpose in mind. That could be, for instance, solving a social issue, could be exploring, could be entertainment, could be having fun. And then we use instrumentally technology to reach that goal. And since technology is giving us so many opportunities, we really think that it's worth it a try and it's worth it uh, the effort for being there, for going there. So with coding, we're not, again, talking about programming, just writing lines of code that allow a machine or a computer to perform a certain action. But we intend really the ability of using technological tools, digital tools, to write your story. And your story could be anything, could be from a fun activity, from a social activity, could be something to convince, could be something on the marketing side. So it's very, very broadly conceived here. So we don't really stick to the traditional or scientific meaning of coding. We want to see coding or digital creativity as something much broader. And I think you should find, or you could find within this framework, many activities, many subjects, many skills that are part of your curriculum, the curriculum you're teaching. As coding is a journey, you will find in this journey many companions, and these are just a few of them. So since a few years ago, it was very hard maybe to introduce some elements of computer programming. Of course, you would have needed pre-knowledge, you would have needed a lot of competencies and also scientific background. Now, more and more tools are freely available on the web, and here are just some examples to allow you to create a huge different number of digital creations. We also have a space which is called allyouneediscode.eu, where we tend to agglomerate, so put together all the different resources that you might find useful. So we thought, okay, let's just share this link, and after this learning event, if you would like to explore more on how to introduce coding, you can just type www.allyouneediscode.eu and try to see what we have to offer there. So everything you will find there is totally open and shareable. So it's a good way to keep informed on the latest developments on this subject. And just to mention a few resources that you can find there, you will find different lessons plans and then different list of teaching and learning resources on different ways to integrate these elements into the classroom. So I will not talk long about this, even though, again, we are offering quite a few opportunities for teachers to follow up on what you're doing here to explore how to integrate computing and technology in the classroom. And as you know, we also run the European SchoolNet Academy, where we offer open online courses for teachers that want to explore more on how to use technology or use tablets, but also integrating different pedagogies in their teaching. So if you want to explore the set of courses we also have there, feel free to just click on this link and take a look. So we want to be a bit practical today. So we'll give a try to some of the tools we were mentioning. And before then, I want also to spend a few more words on some of the elements of the techniques that you can use to teach a bit of technology of digital creativity in an engaging way. The first element that you must keep in mind is that if you don't have computers, if you don't have digital devices, if you don't have internet connection, you can still teach some computational thinking to your students. So in simple words, you can teach them to think as a computer scientist. What does that mean and how can you do that? So there are several resources under the umbrella of the Computer Science Unplugged label that allows you to enter into fun activities with your students and pupils to teach them a few elements of computer science. So let's say algorithms, logical thinking, and you could also, most importantly, make them understand that there's more behind. So here is an example of a simple activity that you can run with your students, also in primary schools. Is My Robotic Friends. We put here just a link for you to follow and take a look. No equipment, of course, is required apart from some plastic cups, but that's something that you probably can find very easily. It's a group activity, so it's something that differently to the traditional also computer science teaching is something that you do together. You do it manually, so with your hands, and it's very engaging, and still it can give you the mindset you need when you start programming. So what your students could learn by this activity is that robots and any automation operate following a series of instructions, which are more complexly called algorithm in mathematics as well, and these instructions are run. So it's important that these instructions are written in a very clear and logical way, which is not that automatic and straightforward to many pupils and students as well as adults. They can also gain practice with using coding with symbols and debugging malfunctioning code. So you could see also watching the tutorial for these activities. And they also can convert real-world activities like moving or performing certain actions into clear and non-ambiguous instructions. So I would suggest you to try some of these activities with your students, especially if you don't have devices in your school. You can also decide to try instead to design little games or tell stories. So in a way, create some simple animation with some tools that are made available online for all of us. Some of you have been using Scratch already. This is what we are gonna see also right now with Tomislava. She will give you a short tutorial on how to create a simple game, a simple animation with Scratch. If you've been using that already, please share also on the chat maybe what your feeling is about this tool. It's totally a free tool. It's made available and developed by the MIT. And yes, we think it's already very popular in schools, and it remains a very good way to teach logical thinking, but what we could call digital creativity too. So I will leave the floor to Tomislava now, and keep asking questions on the chat if you have any.
Okay, hello everyone. Now we can go. Okay, sorry for that. Hello everyone. I will share my screen now after this nice introduction by Tommaso regarding Scratch. Can you see my screen? Yes, great. So I have Scratch open here, and As Tommaso already said, this is a very nice tool, a platform actually for teaching and learning coding with very basic visual programming language, which makes it very easy and also still gives the possibility to create even more complicated projects. So it's not actually only for kids or for little children. Even adults, even me myself, I enjoy trying and making different projects with Scratch. And the good thing about it is that first of all, it's easy because it's not text-based coding, and all the commands and statements are visual, presented as blocks. The other good advantage of Scratch is that it is also possible to have it in your own language, or at least now the possibilities is at I think around 40 languages. So if you scroll down, you can actually change the language that you want to program in. In this case, I will stay with English since this is the language that most of us would understand. And I will just go to Create so that we can start a project from scratch, in Scratch. Yes. So this is the basic. I hope you can see everything. Yes. So this is the basic dashboard that you have, and we will start by creating something very simple, and I will just try to explain most of the functions here and the different buttons that you have. So basically, this here, where my mouse is the place where your game would develop, and on the right side you have actually the box where all the commands and the programming will take place. And in scripts you have the different statements and commands that you would use. They're divided in different categories like events, control, motion, which is one of the most important categories. And you have the start button, which is the green flag, and the stop button. Now we will start, and by creating the game, we'll actually get to know more about the different functionalities. And once again, please feel free to share any even questions or ideas about Scratch. So I will remove this cat because I don't want to use the cat in this case. You can do that by just clicking with the right button on it and just deleting it. And first I will choose the background. In this case, you just click. Okay. I can't scroll down for some reason. So I can't choose my background. Yeah. Yes, maybe I can try. So I will stop sharing my screen for a second. No, still no. Okay, we can try them without a background, but in case you want to know, you can choose your background if you go. Okay, I forgot to share my screen again. Right, so you can choose your background just clicking on the left button at new background, and you have a variety of different backgrounds that you can choose from. But in this case, we'll go with just a blank background and start right away with the new sprite, which is basically the character that is going to move in our game. In this case, I would choose a fish. I was thinking to create something which is related to holidays since it's already June, although in Brussels it's not very sunny yet. But yeah, let's go with a fish, which we can imagine is right now in the sea. If you want to make the fish smaller, you have these two buttons here, which can make the fish grow or shrink. In this case, I would like to shrink it a bit so that it's not too scary. Yes, so now we are ready to start programming our fish so that it can move. The first thing that is very important for you to know is that all the positioning and the directions of the fish is oriented by these axes, the x-axis and the y-axis, which you can see at the right bottom corner of the game. And at any moment, you can see actually where your sprite is if you just look at the very right corner of your screen right now, where my mouse is. So this is very good because sometimes in your commands you will need to identify at what position exactly you would like your sprite to be, and you would need to insert the numbers yourself. So every time you start a game, it's good to start with, let's say, pushing a button that would launch your game. So usually we choose the green flag to start a game, and we just drag and drop the command we want to the right side, as I did it just now. After doing that, we need to identify how exactly we want our fish to move. And in this case, I would just like to move it, to be able to move it by using the arrow keys on my keyboard. So we can do that by going on the control commands and choose the if, so the conditional command. And in this case, I would like to make it so that it would move forward or upwards and downwards. So we choose if the key up arrow is pressed, then our fish, in this case, would move by 10 steps. In this case, this would be a bit too much, so you can always change the positioning and the speed of the character by just changing the numbers here. So in this case, I would make it 5. And we do that for each button that for each direction we want to have the fish to be moving to. So we go and do exactly the same, but this time choosing the down arrow. Which is here, yes. So down arrow, and then our fish would move. So it is very important to note that if you have chosen when you press up, the fish to move up, then in this case, when you push the down arrow, then this means that the fish would need to move in the complete opposite position. So you would need to have a negative number here, which would be exactly the same as the one that you move up. So yes, now we have to make the fish to move forward using the right arrow. We just drag and drop here. Usually when you see the white color surrounding the button, this means that it's already fine to drop it. And then you choose the right arrow. And then in this case, since it will move to the right, you're looking at the x-axis, and this means that your fish would have to change the x position, meaning that you have to drag and drop the change x button by 5. Okay, and if we want to make this action repeatable, then we can just make a loop and add the forever command and just drag and drop everything inside. So we can just now test our game by just clicking on the green flag and trying to move the fish upwards and downwards. And you can see that the fish is actually moving. Okay, do we have enough time for me to explain the whole game, or not really? Yes, okay. I will just very quickly add my second sprite and then we can stop, because Tommaso has a very interesting tool to show you too. So my idea was to have an obstacle for my fish in the sea, so that it's not too easy for the fish to move around. So we can choose another sprite, let's say a bit more scary, which our fish will try to avoid. And okay, the octopus is not too scary, but we can use it. We'll shrink it a bit because it's too big. And one thing I forgot to mention before is that when you actually have your sprite, you can adjust its position or rotation by just clicking on the info button, which is in the sprite box. And then you can just move since I want my octopus to be moving towards the fish and be looking at the fish, I can just turn it around by changing the direction and the rotation style of the octopus. Okay, and as you see, each sprite has a different work board where the commands are aligned. So you're making a separate command, let's say coding for the octopus. And again, we have to start with an event, which would be the click green flag button. And in this case, since we want it to be an obstacle, you want it to be hidden first and then show up at one point. So we add the hide command, and then we want it to start from the very right side of the screen, so we have to position it there. And this happens when you choose the go to and then you choose your coordinates x and y. In this case, we take this one and choose, let's say, these coordinates 204. But in this case, we don't want it to be just steadily in one line moving the whole time. It could be nice for the octopus to move randomly around the y coordinate. So we can actually go to operations and pick random for the y coordinate. And in this case, we would put, since the usually it goes from 150 or 17 minus to plus 170. In this case, we would just insert, let's say, minus 160 to plus 160. Whoops, that's too much. All right, and then we don't want it to be just staying here. We want it to glide towards the fish. So just make it glide by choosing the command which is in motion, glide. Depending on how fast we want it to move, we can adjust the seconds. In my case, I would like to have it, let's say, for 3 seconds, which is not too fast, but it's not too slow as well. And it would go. We wanted to move towards the complete other side, so we'd go for -204. And then for the y coordinates, we would like again to be random so that the octopus could be moving around and the fish would need to try to avoid it. So in this case, we again set it to from -160 to +160. Okay, and we forgot to actually make the octopus visible, so we can just do that by first of all making this in a loop so that it repeats forever, and add the show code for it, which we align here again by drag and drop. And I need to try if our octopus is moving, so yes. And as you can see, I can already move my fish, trying to actually avoid the octopus. Okay. So we have our game almost ready. The only thing that I want to make is that once they bump into each other, I would like my game to be stopped. So in this way, I'm just going to my coding for the fish and adding a few more commands. Going to control, I would like to make a conditional here, which happens by choosing the if and then command, and then I choose to, if my fish touches the octopus, then I would need to stop all events. So here. And let's see what happens. Okay, now I will try to avoid it a bit, and then once they bumped into each other, actually the game stopped. So I hope this was useful, and since we still don't have much time, I would leave the floor to Tommaso. I don't know if someone had any questions, since I was sharing my screen and I could not really. Yes.
So yes, we had a couple of questions, and I was keeping note of that. One is, how do you see the coordinates? How do you decide how to put it? And I think that's an easy one. And yeah, and then the other question was, are there tutorials on YouTube for Scratch? And I guess also you have a quick answer for that too.
So starting with the first question, so the coordinates you can see actually just under the game you've created. I hope you can see my mouse moving right now. So you can see the X and the number right next to it, and the Y and the number right next to it. So every time I move my mouse, you can actually see the coordinates of my mouse. And by doing that, you can identify right away what are the coordinates of your sprite. So I hope you all managed to see that I'm pointing with my mouse. And regarding the tutorials, yes, of course, there are plenty of tutorials in YouTube. We also shared 1 or 2 tutorials in the learning event. And of course, some of them are a bit more advanced. That's why today we just wanted to try and explain the very basics of Scratch so that you can have a bit of a starting point in order to explore the more complicated tutorials on YouTube. But there are plenty of tutorials and actually also different ideas about games that you can create. So please go and explore, because they're very interesting and very creative, I would say. Anything else?
Can you change the background to now?
No, unfortunately, I can't because my computer is not actually able to scroll down right now. I don't know if this is, yeah. Uh, Basically, it's on the very low left corner of your screen right now. It's where my mouse is positioned at the moment, and the choosing of the background is exactly the same as the sprites. You just click on the button, and then you have a variety of different backgrounds that you can choose from. You can also draw them by yourself by just choosing the paint paint new sprite button, but this of course takes some more time, but especially if your students are younger, then that would be a very nice creative activity for them as well, so it would be interesting for them, I suppose.
All right, thank you very much, Tomislav. I think it was very clear. You had an idea what you can do with Scratch. Some of you have been using that already, and definitely it's something to be tried out. As we said, it's very hands-on webinar, so we would like also to show you another small element, another small tool, which is called Pocket Code, that allows you to create applications for mobile phones and for tablets. Is a different tools, but it's somehow similar to Scratch. So I will try to share my screen from the tablet this time to show you what I could do, and I will need the rights for on the tablet. All right, so now okay. Sorry for the creepy sound. So here I am connected with the tablet because I would like to show you how to create a game actually using the tablet instead of using a computer. I should be able to share my screen now, so you should be able to see what I will do. So it's a very also, again, easy tool to spark your students' creativity. It's called Pocket Code, and it's available online for free on the Apple Store. It works on Android devices. So it works with any phones or any tablet that has an Android operating system, but it may be that in the future will be made available to more operating systems. So I'll show you live how it works very quickly. I think 10 minutes will be enough, and then we'll be all relieved to the weekend. It's again a drag and drop system, and it's totally European tool. So it's developed in Austria by the Graz University, and it's been kept updated by these very nice and good developers, which are also working a lot with schools. I will just show you very quickly how to create a very simple games, as Tomislava did some time before. So as I would like to create a new game, I can call it as I want, as you can imagine, and just create an empty program, decide on the orientation of the screen, and just start with a creative process, with a creation process. As for Scratch, I also have to set up a background. What I particularly like of this of this program is that you can actually also choose any background, but you can also design your own, and that's what we are going to do. To design your own background, you can use this, it's called Pocket Paint, so it's actually an add-on to the application, so it's also totally freely available, and as you can see, it looks very much as Paint, as if you've been familiar with. So you can select the design tool you prefer, you can select the color you would like to use, and just start drawing. And when you're done, so you can also add some more colors to your creations. I will do this a bit faster than I've done the first time, but just to give you an idea on how it looked like. So when you decide then to save your background, you can easily do that and keep it for further project as well. So now I have the background already. What is also nice of this application is that you can see the status of advancement of your app in real time. So whenever you want to see what's happening, how is everything look like, you just press on this little arrow on the bottom right of the screen, and it shows you how your application look like. And then you just have to go back and start programming again all your elements. So once you have your background, you actually have to add likely some objects. Those that are in Scratch are called sprites. Here are just simply called objects because in fact they could be anything. And just clicking on the plus button on the bottom of the screen, you can add a new object. And again, the nice thing is that just touching with your fingers the screen, you can just draw your characters. In this case, I would also like to draw a little fish. Give it some color too. And maybe also some more features just to making it more friendly. So it's the first time we do live tutorial like this one. So feel free to just tell us what you think and also what your questions are. And as we have done before, we'll just let you get our comments. You can also undo what you've been doing. So it's very easy to then correct if you did something wrong. So we have our character and we can save it and of course name it so as to keep it. In this case, we call it fish very creatively. And now we have a character or an object that can, with which we could interact. Again, if we push on the little arrow on the bottom right of the screen, we could see how it does look like in the moment. So you see already we have these two different elements. They could interact, but there's something wrong. So I have to go back now and try to program it to make it more viable. So I would click on my character, on my object, and I can start already scripting something. So add a bit of code to this application. For now, I've just played with the paint. So I can add blocks of code quite similarly to Scratch. I would start with the control category. And of course, I would select the first block, the building block, which is when program started, what should happen. Then I would add, for instance, other elements. So I would select the green blocks, which is about the appearances, the look of my object. And first of all, I would like to have it a bit smaller. I saw it was very big on the screen, so I would select the set size to 60%. Here I can change the values, of course. So I can decide, for instance, to make it even smaller. I think 50% would be enough. So I would set the size to 50%. So if I want to take a look already at the final result, let's say I can click again on the little arrow, and you see how this little coding I made changed already the final result. But of course, this is just the beginning, so I will add a bit more of codes here. For instance, I don't want the fish to be flying in the middle of the sea and the sky, so I want to place it at a certain position. So as the same as Scratch, I have this blue building block on the top, which is called place at, and it's by default set in the position in the middle of the screen. So if I want to change the position, I should just change the X. So let's say I can move it horizontally, or change the Y's and move it vertically. As I want fish to be in the sea, I would just put a minus there and say, for instance, that I want to have it here at minus 1000. And let's look how it is now. So it's all right. It's in the right place. Now I want to add a little bit of interactivity to the game. Of course, now it's just a drawing. So I can program also this object to perform a certain action. So I would like, for instance, that when I tap on the fish, so I decide to use this command and just drag and drop it here. I want that something happen. And in this case, since I'm designing an easy and quick application for learning a few words in a foreign language, for instance in English, I would like then when I'm tapped into the fish disappears and it appears the name. So let's say the word fish, so I know that it's how it is called in this language. So I would add the switch to look block. So I know that every time I touch the fish, I get something new. So basically the old look disappears and the new look appears. And I can design the new look, which in this case would be just the word fish. This is how it looks now. So if I touch on my tablet the figure, the image of the fish would change and the name of the animal would appear. I can go on with this kind of adding blocks as much as I want and get this application to get as complex as possible. It really allows you to work with very young kids with these very basic elements until working with older kids, also in upper secondary school, making them develop full games or full application. And by the way, this application can then be exported and downloaded in your apps, and then being actually used in your smartphone or tablet. And just to give you another examples, I would add here a few more controls, so that, for instance, I can put some weight, so I can work a bit of time, so I can decide that every 3 seconds after I tapped on the subject, the object then change its appearances as well. So it goes back to here previous appearances. In this way, with these 4 blocks, I can tell again, can have a little more complex interactivity with the subject. And just to show you how the final result is, so in this case, the kids or the students would tap into the subject on the object. It would see how the object is called, and then the work would be covered again. So they could start doing it again and challenging each other. So now to who knows more names of animals or elements in the application. you can store all your projects into the app. So for instance, when you go to your menu and you tap on your programs, you can see whatever you've developed so far. So these are the programs that I was preparing today for getting ready for this presentation. And this is, for instance, one that I created, so with a few more elements. So it doesn't change much the concept. As you can see, I just added more elements, more characters, and each of them, again, has specific name associated to it. So let's say it could be used for little kids to learn these words. So instead of giving them a pre-made application to studying languages, the challenge here would be, okay, could you develop your own be on the driving seat of your learning process, and also trying to study and understanding that what you are actually doing, all the application and the games you're using are actually the results of a human mind devoted to creating something educational or something interesting or something recreational also. So I think it does really change the approach to technology of pupils and teachers as well. And as I was mentioning, and also as Tomislava was mentioning, these are all very easy tools. They may seem complicated, but really after having played a bit around with those, having had seen a few tutorials on YouTube, you'll be perfectly fine to experiment with those. And for direct experience, when we try these tools with kids, with students, the way, the speed, the pace with which they took up these new techniques and languages and practices, it was just amazing. They are very much ready to take up those opportunities. Therefore, our suggestion would be, if you like to try these, let them go in a way, let them try, let them do mistakes. In this case, they can always go back and try to see where the issue is and really be the drivers of their learnings in this domain. We already have gone a bit over time, but we still want to be here for a few questions if you have, or any comments you may have. I will switch back to the presentation. If there are no questions, I will just mention also on this application that this can work with sensors as well. So the integrated sensors of the tablet or the smartphone can be used to operate the game as well, which makes them even more interactive and playful, of course. Okay, I will just try to go back now. Back control this. Out. Right. I'm back on my previous computer now. It took a bit of technological arrangements to make this possible today. Hope you liked this short tutorial and you had a few more ideas on the different tools that we presented. Okay, so I just seen that I'm actually not okay. Can you give back or rise to me or not really? Because I left the meeting. Okay. I can share anything. Oh, wait a second. Okay, yes. All right, I should be, all right, I should be back. Okay, so we have the tongue twister. Okay, that's all for you then. Oh, okay. She sells seashells by the seashore. Ah, that's a classic one. Yes, that's we all like that. All right, so we'll share the presentation. We share some more resources. In this module, we have already sent you and put some resources on the learning event. As I was saying, just try also to see on this. All you need is code website if you can find something you would like to try out, and just keep posted. You probably have also seen that there's a competition for young students on the I-LINC on the eSkills actually project. It's something we've put also all the information are on this module. So if your students would like to try out some to develop a game, let's say they still have a couple of weeks to submit their games created with Scratch. There's also a nice tutorial made by one of our partners on the website, so take a look at that. And of course, we will share this time the recording of the webinar, even though we probably would need to edit it a bit and cut a bit of technical issues we encountered. So thanks a lot, all of you, for being with us today. It was a pleasure as always, and we'll catch up on the learning event. Just for the one of you that has been connected, we will keep open the learning event for a couple of weeks more. So then you will be able to complete the different tasks if you haven't done so, and if you're joining the learning event just now, you get enough time ready to take a look at the different resources we shared. And thanks a lot for your feedback as well. We hope it is indeed helpful, and it gives you at least a few more opportunity to discover new tools and practices, and especially share with your colleagues. And for us, from our side, I can say really honestly that it's a great opportunity for us to grow up professionally and understand what's happening in the different schools around Europe, and what great teachers, as all of you are doing for making teaching and learning a bit more engaging and meaningful for students and pupils. So thanks you all for your job, and enjoy this nice weekend and the summer coming up, hopefully in Brussels as well at one point. Thank you very much. Take care.